Every Christmas morning in our family starts the same way, with a sharp, sweet scent of cinnamon winding through the hallways and a feeling in the air that something important remains unspoken. The old radiators hum, the windows rattle with the occasional gust of Midwest winter wind, and from the kitchen comes the sound of Mom, Linda, already bustling around in her red robe, humming carols off-key. I always wake up first, tiptoeing down the hall past the photo wall, all those frozen smiles that seem to belong to another family. This year, the world outside is blanketed in the kind of soft, thick snow that makes everything look pure and untouched, as if nothing bad could ever happen in a place like Springfield, Illinois. But inside, under the glow of the same old Christmas lights we've used since I was a child, the Barrett house feels both warm and, somehow, a little hollow. I make my way into the kitchen. Mom barely glances up, busy stirring something in her favorite green mixing bowl. "Morning, Evelyn," she says, already in the zone. "If you could get the cinnamon rolls out, that would be great." I slip on oven mitts, careful not to burn my hands the way I did years ago. When I open the oven door, a wave of sugar and spice hits me, sharp and nostalgic. The rolls are perfect on top, just starting to darken at the edges. Mom always lets them go a little too long, as if she's got too many other things on her mind. As I turn out the rolls onto a tray, I hear the front door open and close, a flutter of cold air and commotion. Melody is here, as usual, just late enough to make an entrance. Her laughter is the first thing we hear, clear, bright, and practiced, the way only Melody can do. She breezes in wearing a new pale blue coat, her hair curled just so, cheeks flushed as if she's been out caroling instead of getting a ride from her boyfriend's Tesla. "Sorry I'm late," she chirps, not sorry at all. But at least I made it for the important part, Mom's famous cinnamon rolls. Dad Ronald wanders in from the den, coffee mug in hand, already dressed in his best Christmas sweater, the one with the reindeer and the little jingle bells. He looks at Melody and grins. "Well, the star has arrived. Tell us, Mel, how's the big PR campaign going? Still on track to make you the next Oprah?" Melody shrugs, tossing her coat onto a chair. "Dad, please, that's old news. But if you must know, my boss says the firm has never been busier." I bring over the tray of rolls. "Careful, they're hot," I say, my voice smaller than I want it to be. Nobody hears me. Melody and Dad are already talking over each other, both so naturally at the center of the action that it's hard to tell where one ends and the other begins. Mom is watching, her eyes soft, proud, maybe even a little misty. She calls everyone to the table, and for a few minutes, the world is reduced to coffee, orange juice, and the sound of forks against plates. The old fireplace crackles in the living room, and the Christmas tree glitters in the corner, decorated with the same gold bulbs from my childhood, some cracked, some chipped, all still there. Halfway through breakfast, there's a knock at the back door. "Oh, that'll be Dwayne," Mom says. Sure enough, our neighbor Mr. Dwayne steps inside, bundled up in a thick scarf and wool cap, carrying a plate wrapped in foil. "Morning, Barretts. Brought over some of Lorraine's gingerbread cookies. Figured you could use some real holiday baking." He winks at me, his eyes kind, and I force a smile. Mom laughs. "Thank you, Dwayne. I'll make sure these don't last past lunch." Mr. Dwayne sets the cookies on the counter, but as he turns to leave, he pauses just a second too long, catching my eye. There's something in his look, understanding, maybe even pity, that makes me feel exposed. It passes quickly, though, and he heads out, waving to Dad and Melody. We settle back into our traditions. Melody tells a dramatic story about her office secret Santa. Mom gushes over every detail. Dad peppers her with questions. I find myself quietly clearing plates, mostly invisible except when someone needs more coffee. I try not to resent it. After all, I've always been the dependable one. After breakfast, the family moves to the living room for gifts. The air shifts. This is Melody's favorite part. She sits on the floor, surrounded by shiny boxes, her eyes lighting up as she shakes each one. Dad grabs his phone, ready to take photos, while Mom fusses over ribbons and bows. It's always the same. Melody opens her presents first, narrating each moment like she's on camera. A silk scarf, a gold bracelet, a book of affirmations. Finally, Mom hands her a small, gold-wrapped box, tied with a perfect satin ribbon. Melody gasps before even opening it, her signature move since we were kids. Oh my gosh, what is this? She peels the paper back with agonizing slowness, savoring every second, and opens the box. Inside, nestled in velvet, is a gleaming silver house key. For a split second, no one moves. Then, all at once, the room erupts. Dad claps Melody on the back, Mom wipes away a tear, and Melody lets out a squeal that could shatter glass. Are you serious? Is this for me? Mom nods, her smile radiant. We bought you a house, sweetie. It's just across town, a little place you can call your own. Melody throws her arms around both of them, overwhelmed with delight. Dad grins at me, but his eyes don't quite meet mine. Not every day your baby girl gets her first house, he says. I force a smile, my hands twisting together in my lap. Out of the corner of my eye, I see Mom reach for something on the coffee table, a plain white envelope with my name written in her familiar looping cursive. She hands it to me quietly, with a gentle pat on my shoulder. There's no fanfare, no announcement, no one snapping a photo. I feel the weight of it before I even open it. Something inside me already knows it won't be anything I've dreamed about. Melody is still squealing, holding her key up to the light as if it's made of diamonds. Mom leans close, her voice soft and knowing. One day you'll understand, Evelyn. The moment hangs in the air, fragile as the snow falling outside. I glance at the cinnamon rolls, now cold and slightly burnt, just like they are every year. And as I look at my parents, I catch a flash of something in their faces, relief, pride, and maybe just a flicker of guilt, before they turn their attention back to Melody and her brand new future. There's something oddly comforting about chipped mugs and old Christmas ornaments, their flaws carefully overlooked, just as our family has always learned to do. I notice it most on mornings like this, when the gifts are all unwrapped, wrapping paper piled in a corner, and the only sound from the kitchen is the echo of laughter from Melody and Mom. In the quiet of the living room, I linger, letting my eyes travel over the shelves, the knickknacks, the faded cards tucked behind holiday figurines. I reach for one of the chipped reindeer mugs, the one with the paint peeling from its nose. I remember drinking hot cocoa from it as a child, hands wrapped around it for warmth, pretending I didn't care that the pretty ones were always set aside for Melody's friends at her annual Christmas party. Funny how those little things stick with you. I start clearing the plates, the lingering sweetness of cinnamon and the cold crust of burnt rolls reminding me of how tradition can be both comfort and curse. As I stack dishes, a memory floats back, my 9th birthday. Mom had promised to bake a cake, but that morning Melody had ballet rehearsal, and I was left alone in the kitchen. I baked my own cake, too much oil, not enough sugar. I decorated it with sprinkles from an old jar, lit a candle, and waited for someone to sing. No one did. I ate a slice standing at the kitchen counter, watching the clock, listening to Mom hum in the next room while she brushed Melody's hair. That same year, Melody had a backyard party with ponies and glittery presents, neighbors dropping by to fuss over her. I blew out my candle quietly and washed the dishes so no one would know I'd made a mess. I moved to the living room, tracing my finger along the dusty edge of a framed photo. It's a picture from years ago, Melody in the center, beaming, Mom and Dad looking at her with pride, as if the world revolved around her laughter. I'm there, off to the side, half my face cropped out, an afterthought in my own family story. The photo frame is cracked at the corner, held together with yellowing tape. That feels about right. Other memories surface unbidden. My middle school graduation, when I came home with an award. Mom texted, so proud, sorry we couldn't be there, go get them. Melody had a regional dance competition that day, so she and Dad were out of town. Senior year, academic awards night, my name called for top scholarship. I looked out into the auditorium, searching for a familiar face. Mom sat in the front row, but she was scrolling on her phone. When I stepped down, certificate still warm in my hands, she looked up just long enough to say, well, at least you're good at something. Her words stung more than any silence could. I've learned not to expect much, to celebrate quietly. Dad always said I was the independent one, and Mom would echo, you've always handled things yourself, Evelyn. You're so resilient. But their praise for my resilience always felt like a consolation prize, a way to explain away the times they didn't show up, or forgot, or simply chose Melody's milestones over mine. From the kitchen, I hear Melody's laughter, high and clear, followed by Mom's delighted response. There's a rhythm to it, a performance they've honed over the years. Dad's voice joins in, asking about Melody's new house, making jokes about home ownership, responsibility. No one asks me what I think or how I'm doing. I busy myself with chores, stacking plates, wiping down the table, taking comfort in the familiar repetition. I find myself back at the old wooden bookshelf, running my hands along the spines of books I haven't opened in years. There's another photo tucked behind the Barrett family Christmas album, a candid shot of Melody and me as kids, faces smudged with frosting. In the picture, she's holding a blue ribbon, and I'm looking at her, not the camera. Even then, I knew my place. The years have blurred together, each season marked by the same rituals, Melody's parties, my quiet birthdays, the annual parade of relatives gushing over my sister's latest accomplishment. I became adept at standing in the shadows, learning that in this family, love isn't always loud, it's often measured in what's withheld. A wave of exhaustion washes over me, not just from today, but from years of quietly swallowing disappointment. I sit on the edge of the sofa, turning the envelope with my name on it over and over in my hands. The weight of it feels heavier than it should. I'm not ready to open it yet, to see what empty gesture or well-meaning dismissal waits inside. As I stare at the envelope, I can't help but feel that family tradition is just another way of dressing up the same old wounds, wrapping them in pretty paper, calling them love, but never really facing what's underneath. Maybe this is how it always is, I think. Maybe chipped mugs and missing pieces are just the cost of belonging, if you want to call it that. The sound of laughter drifts in again, and I close my eyes for a moment, letting it wash over me, familiar, distant, and just out of reach. Not every gift is meant to be opened in front of a crowd. The envelope still sits in my lap as the living room empties out, sunlight filtering through the curtains in stripes across the faded rug. From down the hallway, I can hear Melody's laughter and the bright clatter of kitchen dishes. Mom and Dad are busy with her, letting me fade into the quiet. I don't mind. Solitude is a language I've been fluent in since I was a child. I study my name on the envelope, written in Mom's looping, careful script. The edges are sharp, as if the paper itself has been waiting all morning to be touched. I flip it over once, twice, before finally sliding a finger under the flap and pulling it open. Inside is a single folded sheet, no card, no note, just a computer printout. At first, the lines blur together, but as my eyes adjust, I realize it's a job posting, administrative assistant, Midwest Mutual Insurance. Full-time, entry-level, hourly pay. There's no congratulations, no we thought of you. Just my name, printed at the top in block letters, as if I'm a stranger on a mailing list. A hollow feeling opens up in my chest. For a moment, I just sit there, staring at the page. I can almost hear Dad's voice, practical and clipped. It's time you found some stability. Maybe this is their way of helping, I think. Maybe they truly believe I need a push, a list of options, a hint about what someone like me is supposed to do next. Growing up, I became an expert in reading between the lines. Report cards left out on the counter, phone bills paid late, the short, emotionless texts from Dad, dinners in the fridge. If Melody missed curfew, there were lectures and tears. If I did, it was a quick, just let us know next time, no fuss, as if disappointment was expected of me but never worth the effort to correct. With the envelope now emptied of its meaning, I gather the scraps of wrapping paper and stray bows from the floor. The house is quieter now, the excitement shifting away from the living room as Melody calls her friends to share the news about her house. I start tidying up, falling into old routines, but the feeling of being left out clings to me. As I clean, my hand brushes against the handle of an old drawer built into the sideboard. I open it, half expecting to find nothing but dust and ancient birthday candles. Instead, there's a small stack of yellowed envelopes and a half-filled ledger. Among the pile, I spot something with my name on it, a bill, dated a few months back, from a company called Lakeshore Utilities. It lists an address I don't recognize, somewhere near Sancris Lake. I stare at the paper, the numbers not making sense. I've never lived there, never signed up for anything under my name in that part of town. A creeping suspicion rises in me when I can't explain, but can't quite ignore. I pull the bill free, examining the details. My name, my social security number, an address that means nothing to me. My mind drifts back to those years in college when I was careful with every dime, when any surprise in the mail felt like a threat. Why would there be a bill for me tied to a place I've never been? I tuck the bill into my sweater pocket, my heart pounding. The old feeling of being outside the loop, the last to know, the last to be considered, washes over me, sharper than before. I want to ask Mom about it, but as I wander into the kitchen, she's busy fussing over Melody, slicing coffee cake and pouring cider. The kitchen is warm, the air thick with sugar and the soft glow of family togetherness that somehow always feels out of reach. I take a breath, then step closer. Mom, can I ask you something about this? I hold up the bill, trying to keep my tone casual. She barely glances at it, her eyes flicking past mine. Oh, I'm sure that's just some mix-up, honey. You know how these companies are, probably a clerical error. Don't worry about it. Before I can say more, she's called away by Melody, who wants to show her the plans for decorating her new place. I'm left standing alone, bill in hand, my question dismissed with the practiced ease of someone who has years of experience in changing the subject. Back in my old bedroom, which hasn't changed much since I was a teenager, I sit on the edge of the bed, the utility bill spread out on the quilt beside me. My phone buzzes, a call from Melody. Hey, guess what? She says before I can answer. I just drove by my house and the place is perfect. There's a reading nook, a cute little backyard, everything I wanted. It's so me, you know. I muster a "that's great, Mel," but she's already moved on, listing furniture ideas, paint colors, where she'll put the Christmas tree next year. Oh, and thanks for being so supportive, she adds. Mom and Dad said you're always good at figuring things out for yourself. I guess you don't need much, huh? The words sting, but I let them slide, not wanting to spoil her excitement. As the evening creeps in, I can't let go of the sense that something is being hidden from me, wrapped in silence, layered under traditions. When the house quiets, I retreat to my room and open my laptop, fingers trembling as I type in the address from the bill. Within minutes, I find a public record site. My name pops up, owner of record for a property near Sancris Lake. The information is plain as day, impossible to misinterpret. A cold certainty settles in my stomach. I scribble a note on the back of the bill. Ask Teresa about property records. Something is shifting, finally, in the silence. Not all gifts are meant to be opened in front of family. Sometimes, what's inside changes everything. Sometimes, it's the people on your street who know your secrets before you do. That's the sort of wisdom that only makes sense after you've spent enough years in a place like this, where fences are mostly for decoration, and the glow of porch lights travels further than you think. By nightfall, the snow in the backyard has crusted over, reflecting the golden string lights Mom and Dad have looped around the deck. The annual post-Christmas barbecue is one of those traditions that, like the burnt cinnamon rolls, endures no matter what's changed or what hasn't. Tonight, everyone's bundled up in heavy coats and scarves, breath curling in the cold air, red cups warming hands. The Barrettts' backyard feels both festive and a little haunted, shadows thrown by the fire pit dancing across the patchy lawn. Laughter and country music drift from the speaker by the back door, but I can't quite shake the feeling that something else hangs in the air, something no one's ready to say aloud. Neighbors wander over from the houses on either side, drawn by the smell of burgers and the promise of stories. Diana, who runs the local book club and can quote every bestseller from memory, arrives with a dish of lemon bars and her usual appetite for gossip. Mr. Duane brings his infamous spiked cider, slapping Dad on the back and trading jokes about high mortgage rates. After plates have been piled with food and a round of "What are you grateful for?" has circled the fire, the conversation shifts to the real business of the neighborhood: who's moving, who's refinancing, who's got something new cooking behind closed doors. Diana settles into the old lawn chair beside me, her eyes sharp behind oversized glasses. "You know, it's the season for creative real estate transfers around here," she says, winking. "I heard the Wilsons down the street sold their place to their daughter, but kept the deed in Mom's name until the taxes are better. You wouldn't believe the stories the county records could tell." I laugh politely, tucking my hands under my thighs for warmth. It does seem like everyone's up to something lately. Diana leans in, lowering her voice. "But you, Evelyn, your folks must be proud. Melody's new house is the talk of the block. A starter home in this market? That's no small feat." Before I can answer, a message buzzes on my phone. Melody, posing with a glass of wine at her housewarming, her smile all teeth and confidence. "Thanks for being there for me, sis. Love you," reads the caption. I pocket the phone, suddenly feeling exposed. Mr. Duane comes over, face ruddy from the cider, and nods at Diana. "You know, every mortgage has a story behind it. Some juicier than others." He glances at me with a look that lingers too long. "Take that lake house out near St. Chris, funny business, that one. Heard it changed hands more than once, but never saw a moving van." I feel my heart jump, but I try to play it cool. "Oh? Who owns it now?" Duane shrugs, but his eyes are gentle. "Depends on who you ask. Sometimes the folks living in the biggest house are the last to know what's really theirs." There's a lull as someone calls for more hot dogs. Dad and Mom are at the grill, swapping spatulas and smiling for their friends, as if everything is perfectly normal. But I catch Dad shooting a nervous glance toward the lake in the distance, his mouth tight. Diana fills the gap with another story, but I only half listen. My mind is racing back to the bill I found earlier, the address I Googled, my name listed in black and white for a property no one in my family has ever mentioned. Then, out of nowhere, Diana turns back to me. "You know, Evelyn, you'd be surprised whose name is actually on the deed for that house by the lake. Around here, it's never quite who you'd expect." Her words hang between us, heavy as the frost settling on the lawn. The fireworks begin just then, popping in bursts of red and gold over the rooftops, someone down the block celebrating early, or maybe just looking for a reason to light up the sky. The neighbors cheer, cups raised, while I slip away from the circle, phone already in hand. As the sparks fade, I open my contacts and scroll to Teresa's name, my old friend from college, who's become the kind of lawyer you call when things don't add up. I hesitate, thumb hovering, before finally deciding. Tomorrow morning, I'll call her. I need answers. I need to know what story my own family's been writing for me, one they never meant for me to read. Above, the last firework bursts, scattering blue stars across the dark. My mind is made up, my resolve settling deeper than the snow at my feet. Sometimes secrets are louder than fireworks, and I'm done pretending I don't hear them. Some truths stay buried in paperwork, but the ghosts always find a way through the cracks. It's a thought that nags at me as I walk downtown under a late afternoon sky, rain peppering my coat, dampening my resolve only a little. My note, "Ask Teresa about property records," is crumpled in my pocket, the ink blurring at the edges from being read and reread. Teresa's office sits in an old brick building, wedged between a florist and a dentist. There's a brass plaque on the door, and behind it, the waiting area smells faintly of lavender and strong coffee. Teresa greets me with a quick hug, her raincoat already dripping on the tile. She looks the same as she did in college, sharp eyes, quick smile, the kind of presence that makes you want to confess things you've kept quiet for years. We settle in her office, 2 mugs steaming between us, the windows streaked with gray. Outside, the traffic of Springfield moves on, unaware that my world feels like it's balancing on a knife edge. "So, Evelyn," she says gently, "tell me everything. From the beginning." I hand her the utility bill, the printouts, the note with the mysterious address by Sancris Lake. Teresa sifts through the papers, her brow furrowing. She pulls her laptop closer, typing with quick, practiced fingers. "I'm going to run a check through the county records and the state database," she says. "You'd be surprised what ends up online these days." While she works, I stare at my hands, trying not to pick at my cuticles the way I do when I'm anxious. The rain outside grows heavier, drumming against the window like a clock counting down. Teresa hums softly, then freezes. "Found it. Property number matches. The owner of record is you. But there's a trust attached, and wait, these signatures." She leans in, clicking through scanned images of deeds, authorization forms, loan paperwork. She angles her screen so I can see. It's my name, printed and signed on the official transfer. But the signature, looping and neat, doesn't belong to me. The Y on Evelyn curls differently, the slants all wrong, too careful. I swallow hard, suddenly cold despite the mug in my hands. "Teresa," I whisper, "that's not mine." She nods, pulling up another file. "And this authorization to withdraw funds from an investment account, again, it's your name, but the signature doesn't match any of the documents you signed for your college loans or your apartment lease." My mind reels, jumping between suspicion and disbelief. What does it mean? She closes her laptop, meeting my eyes. "It means someone used your identity to move property and money. Evelyn, this is bigger than a clerical error. And it's not something that just happens by accident, especially not within families." I feel the room tilt a little. It's one thing to suspect you've been excluded, another to realize you've been written into a story without your consent. Teresa's tone softens. "Listen, this kind of thing, it can go a lot of directions. You could call the authorities, pursue fraud charges, but that will get ugly fast. If you want to quietly assert your control over this asset, there are other, less public routes. I can help you, but you'll need to move quickly, before anyone shifts things further." She opens a file folder and hands me a photocopy, an official deed for the lake house. The signature leaps out again, and for a moment, I want to laugh at the audacity. My own name, but not my hand. The house, my house, at least on paper, has been sitting in someone else's story, waiting for me to find it. Evelyn, do you want this property? Do you want to challenge this, or let it go? I breathe in, trying to focus past the jumble of emotions, anger, confusion, a strange kind of relief. I just want the truth. I want my life to be mine again. She gives a small, sad smile. That's a good place to start. But I have to warn you, family legal battles don't end when the paperwork does. They can leave scars you don't see for years. Once you open this box, you can't close it again. I nod, feeling the weight of everything I haven't said pressing against my chest. I need to do this, Teresa. But I want to be smart, and I don't want my parents or Melody to see it coming. Not yet. Teresa lays out the first steps. Document everything, gather copies, keep the originals safe. She offers to act as my proxy, to shield me from confrontation until I decide what to do next. If you want control, you have options, she says, her voice steady. But you need to act soon and keep your cards close. Outside, the rain lets up, the first thin sunlight cutting through the gray. I tuck the papers into my bag, heart pounding, but steadier than before. There are ghosts in the records, and maybe in my family, but for the first time, I'm ready to face them. As I step out into the fading light, I know the easy part is over. What comes next will demand a kind of strength I'm only beginning to understand. On the east side of town, every decision carries a different weight. Some doors you open, some doors you close for good, and it's impossible to know which until you hear the click behind you. The snow has started again, heavier now, each flake blurring the streetlights outside my apartment window. The world is wrapped in silence, as if even the city is holding its breath. I sit at my small kitchen table, a stack of legal documents fanned out beside my laptop, half-drunk mug of tea cooling by my elbow. The heater hums in the background, struggling against the draft that seeps in through old windows. My inbox is filled with emails from Teresa, subject lines marked urgent, confidential, next steps. In this moment, my life feels like it's been reduced to file names and attachments, passwords, and security codes. I glance at my phone, rereading Teresa's latest message. Evelyn, if you want to proceed quietly, here's the plan. I'll draw up the LLC paperwork. We file for transfer of ownership under the shell. Keep all communications encrypted. Let me know as soon as you sign. Attached is a draft of a strategy, diagrams, timelines, a checklist for what needs to happen and in what order. She's thought of everything: protection, privacy, a way to take back what's mine without a public fight. My hand hesitates over the mouse. Somewhere in my memory, I hear my father's voice, Ronald, in one of his lessons about family. In the Barrett house, we sacrifice for each other. Sometimes you put off your own needs for the good of the whole. That's what family means, Ev. He always said it like a badge of honor. But sitting here tonight, I wonder if all those sacrifices were ever evenly shared. I pull out old files, combing through scanned tax returns, savings account statements, and every odd envelope I've kept since college. There's a pattern emerging. Assets moved quietly, each transaction routed through me, but never for my benefit. As a teenager, Mom would borrow from my savings for Melody's dance costumes or an overdue bill, always promising to pay it back. Just for a little while, she'd say. Families help each other. But the balance was never restored. Now, looking at the legal maze before me, I see it's the same story, just on a larger scale. The snow outside thickens, blurring the city into a quiet white blur. I sit straighter, clicking open the digital signature field. Teresa has prepared everything, an LLC set up in my name, paperwork for transferring the lake house under its umbrella, legal notices drafted in case there's pushback. Every field is filled, every dotted line marked. My heart pounds as I hover over the signature. This isn't a birthday card or a class permission slip. It's a declaration that I'm ready to step out of the role I've played for decades, the dependable daughter, the invisible support, the one who never causes trouble. My hands tremble as I reach for my stylus, but not with fear, with the gravity of breaking a contract my family has always pretended was written in love, not expectation. With a deep breath, I sign my name, the digital ink curling across the screen. In that moment, I feel both free and strangely empty. There's no applause, no reassurance, no going back. A few minutes later, my phone buzzes, a security alert from the family bank account. Unusual activity detected. Attempted withdrawal, $35,000 from Family Trust. My pulse spikes. I quickly log in, hands shaking, and see the flag on the account. Someone, probably dad or mom, has just tried to move a large sum. Maybe they're spooked. Maybe they know something's shifting. For the first time, I don't feel the urge to warn them or to ask permission. The old rules don't apply anymore. Teresa sends a quick reply. Got your signature. It's official. We'll move fast. Stay alert for any pushback. I close my laptop and stare out into the snowy night, the world blank and waiting. My hands are still trembling, but it's not from fear. It's the adrenaline of doing something that can't be undone. Outside, headlights blur past, but my little apartment is still. I can feel the old contract, the silent agreement that I would always let things slide, always carry the family secrets, splintering at last. I wrap my arms around myself, letting the weight of this moment settle in. I know what comes next won't be easy. Legal battles with your own family leave scars that run deep, long after the paperwork is done. But for the first time, I'm not the one letting things happen to me. Tonight, I'm the one making the first move. Some secrets are only spilled over tea and lemon cookies, when husbands are away and the clock slows down just enough for honesty to sneak in. It's something my grandmother always warned about, how, in small towns, secrets don't stay buried forever. They grow legs. This afternoon, the clouds hang low over Springfield, painting the street a shade grayer than usual. Diana's living room is warm and bright, the kind of place where it feels safe to be a little softer, a little more real. The club gathers as it always does, 4 women from up and down our street, each with a different laugh, but all with the same hunger for stories, whether they come bound in hardcovers or whispered across a couch. The air is scented with lemon and ginger. Diana, always the consummate hostess, passes a tray of homemade cookies and refills teacups without missing a beat in conversation. There's a fire crackling in the stone hearth, an anchor for the afternoon, and rain taps quietly against the bay window. The book of the month, some New England mystery, sits mostly untouched, buried beneath a tide of neighborhood gossip. It always comes down to paperwork, Diana declares, setting her cup down with a gentle clink. People think lawyers are boring, but you should see the drama I've watched unfold at the recorder's office. 2 other women nod, their eyes lighting with the thrill of secrets not their own. Marilyn leans in, lowering her voice. Did you all hear about the Mason family? Poor Helen thought her house was safe until her son-in-law reorganized everything for tax reasons. Next thing she knows, she's renting her own home from a trust she never heard of. Diana shakes her head, sighing theatrically. It's the creative paperwork you have to watch out for, especially with family involved. She glances at me, just long enough for it to mean something, but not so long as to draw attention from the others. I press my lips together, keeping my expression neutral. Speaking of creative, Trina pipes up. I heard there's some confusion about who owns that lake house now. Didn't the Barretts have a place out there? I feel every eye on me, the air tightening a little. I take a careful sip of tea and force a lightness into my voice. You know how these stories go. In my family, nothing is ever straightforward. There's a polite round of laughter, but I can sense their curiosity hasn't been satisfied. Just then, The front door opens and Mom, Linda, pokes her head in. She waves, cheeks pink from the cold, carrying a casserole dish she promises to bring back sometime next week. She hovers for a moment, sharing a few pleasantries, but there's a tension to her smile, an undercurrent that doesn't quite fade even as she slips back outside. The group shifts, conversation bubbling back, but a question lingers. Marilyn, never one to beat around the bush, asks, "So, Evelyn, do you actually own the lake house now? Or is that just another neighborhood legend?" I hold her gaze, the silence stretching just long enough to become awkward. "It's complicated," I say, hoping to sound both vague and final. "Some things take time to sort out." Diana breaks the tension, offering another cookie. "Well, whatever the story is, make sure it ends better than some I've heard. Houses come and go. But families? That's where the real drama happens." The conversation turns, but I know I haven't convinced anyone. In this neighborhood, people read between the lines the way others read recipes. As I gather my things to leave, Diana follows me to the door. She presses her hand gently over mine, her eyes soft but serious. "Don't let your story end like Helen's did," she murmurs. "You're smarter than that, and you have more power than you think." The words settle in my chest, warm and weighty. Walking home, I sense the quiet scrutiny of drawn curtains, the gentle curiosity that comes with living in a place where news travels faster than cars on a rainy afternoon. Every step reminds me that, here, the lines between privacy and performance are always blurred. And as I turn up my collar against the drizzle, I realize that my family's drama isn't just ours anymore. It's become neighborhood currency, a story everyone wants to finish for themselves. The truth is, I'm not sure where my story is going next. But I know now that everyone is watching and, in their own way, waiting to see what I'll do. Sometimes, freedom doesn't come with a bang or a fight. Sometimes it arrives on a quiet afternoon with a careful signature and the soft hush of snow falling just beyond a frosted window. The world outside feels muted, blanketed in white. Inside the local title office, the air is warm and humming, the hush broken only by the rustle of paper and the tap of keyboards. I arrive early, brushing flecks of snow from my shoulders as I step through the glass door. Teresa is already there, sitting near the window with a folder in her lap. She greets me with a tired smile, a mixture of encouragement and warning. "Are you ready?" she asks. I nod. The truth is, I've spent years letting things slide in the name of peace, smoothing over arguments, biting my tongue, convincing myself that going along was easier than going against. But this time, the peace I want is a peace that belongs to me. The receptionist leads us to a small conference room. There's a pot of weak coffee on a side table and a box of ballpoint pens, each with the bank's logo. The room is bright and still, but beneath the quiet, I feel my heart pounding. The closing officer, a woman with kind eyes and a brisk, no-nonsense manner, explains each form as if she's used to nervous clients. Teresa reviews every line, occasionally pausing to translate the legalese into plain English. "This document finalizes the transfer to the LLC," she says, sliding the paper in front of me. "Once you sign, it's done. No one can dispute it." I steady my hand and sign, my name looping across the page in blue ink. Then another signature and another. Each one feels like a small act of rebellion, an assertion that my story won't be written for me anymore. There's a pause while the banker checks documents and processes the wire transfer. Teresa taps her phone, checking messages, but I stare at my hands, taking in what's about to change. I think about all the years I convinced myself it was safer to let things happen than to make them happen. How many times I'd accepted a smaller share of love, attention, or trust because rocking the boat seemed worse than going without. My phone vibrates in my coat pocket. It's Dad, Ronald, calling. I step into the hallway to answer, the cold tile grounding me. Hey, honey, his voice is gentle, a little too careful. Just checking in. Your mother and I were going through some paperwork and, well, there are some things about the family trust one thought we might discuss. Nothing urgent. Just, family stuff. He's fishing for something, but I keep my voice calm. I've been handling my own finances, Dad. Everything's under control. A beat of silence, then he changes the subject, asks about the weather, mentions Melody's new project, the same old safe topics. When the call ends, I stand there for a long moment, letting the old guilt slide off my shoulders like melting snow. Back in the conference room, the banker slides the final packet across the table. Teresa gives me a quiet nod. That's it, she says. You're now the sole and uncontested owner of the lake house, through the LLC. No more shadows, no more guesswork. It's yours. I want to celebrate, but the feeling is quieter than I imagined. Relief mingles with a gentle sorrow. I think of my parents, of Melody, of the traditions that once felt like anchors and now feel like gentle weights holding me in place. I gather my coat and step outside. The snow has picked up, swirling in soft, silent waves. I walk slowly, feeling the cold bite my cheeks and the warmth of accomplishment in my chest. For the first time, I'm walking into a future I shaped for myself, not one handed to me or signed in secret by someone else. Ahead of me, Christmas lights blink in the early dusk, windows glowing with families gathered inside. Another holiday is approaching, but this time, I'll be coming home with more than wrapped boxes and polite smiles. I'll carry with me a kind of freedom that's both exhilarating and bittersweet, a freedom that cost more than I ever expected, but one I'm finally ready to claim. As I turn down my street, flakes gather on my shoulders and the hush of evening settles. My steps feel lighter, even as my heart lingers on all that's changed. Freedom, I realize, isn't the absence of ties, but the power to choose which ones I keep and which I let fall away. New Year's Eve is supposed to be about hope, about promises for change, second chances, and letting go of the past. But anyone who's lived long enough knows, old truths linger, stretching long after midnight, seeping through even the thickest coats of good intentions. At the Barrett house, the windows glow warm against the blue dark of a snowy Illinois evening. The kitchen is full of familiar smells, pot roast, mashed potatoes, the last batch of Linda's lemon bars cooling on the stove. Someone's got the TV turned to the background drone of a countdown show, but no one's really watching. Everyone is too busy playing their part. The table is set with the good dishes, the ones Mom always polishes for the holidays. There are candles and cloth napkins and a bowl of Melody's favorite cranberry salad. She's the first to arrive, breezing in with a rush of perfume and sparkly earrings, chatting about her New Year's resolutions and the exciting possibilities for her new house. Dad, Ronald, floats in and out of the room, topping off wine glasses and checking his phone between sips. He tries to be present, but his mind is clearly elsewhere. Maybe he's thinking about the trust account or the phone call I didn't return. Maybe he's just tired. Linda, my mother, is almost over cheerful, her laughter a little too bright, her movements a little too quick. She asks me, for the third time, if I want more potatoes. You always loved these, didn't you, honey? She says, and I nod, though the taste is bland, and my appetite has gone. Dinner is a performance we've all rehearsed, clinking silverware, polite questions, Melody's updates about her housewarming parties, and how hard it is being a homeowner. I see the flicker of envy in her eyes when she mentions the mortgage, and I wonder if she suspects anything yet. Mr. Duane stops by just before dessert, his cheeks rosy from the cold and his arms full of homemade fudge. Happy New Year, folks, he booms, dropping fudge on the table and shaking Dad's hand. He raises his glass for a toast. to good neighbors and even better secrets. There's a burst of laughter, too loud, but it fades quickly. We all eat. We all smile. But the tension is palpable, humming beneath every word. Dad mentions something about future plans for the lake house, and for a moment, everyone goes silent. Melody, trying too hard to sound casual, says, "I heard you have a loan out on that place now, Ev. That's wild. I hope it's not too much stress." I look up, my fork pausing in midair. Linda's hand tightens around her wine glass. She glances at me, eyes shining and fearful. "Is there something we should talk about, Evelyn?" Her voice is soft, hopeful, afraid. The moment stretches. I see Mom's nervousness, Dad's avoidance, Melody's shallow curiosity, and I feel a wave of something between sadness and resolve. This is what it comes down to, I think. Years of not asking questions. Years of letting things go for the sake of peace. Years of waiting for "one day you'll understand." I realize I'm not angry, not really. I'm just tired of pretending. I'm tired of being the only one who doesn't get to write her own script. I think about telling them everything about Teresa, the signatures, the LLC, the choices I've made. I think about what it might do to the fragile peace we're pretending to hold. But I also wonder if they're ready to hear it, if they'll ever be ready. The clock on the mantel ticks closer to midnight. Someone pours another round of champagne, and we all gather in the living room. Melody turns up the TV, and a chorus of strangers in Times Square begins to count down. 10, 9, 8. Linda wraps an arm around my shoulder. Dad gives a tight-lipped smile. Melody raises her glass. Mr. Dwayne winks, as if he knows more than he's letting on. 3, 2, 1. We all cheer, clinking glasses, the taste of bubbles and lemon bars mixing on my tongue. I force a smile, but inside, I'm still counting down, waiting for a moment when the truth can come out and breathe. Outside, fireworks bloom behind frosted windows, brief and brilliant. But inside, our family sits in the same old patterns, the same old secrets humming underneath the laughter. As I watch the clock reset, I know the year has turned. But I also know that some truths don't change, not with a kiss or a toast or a string of resolutions. They linger, waiting for their moment. And for the first time, I'm the one who gets to decide when that moment comes. The masks we wear are more fragile than we think. Sometimes all it takes is a single truth, spoken quietly, but with conviction, to shatter the entire performance. The morning after New Year's is always a strange one. The festive decorations look tired in the daylight, champagne flutes still sticky on the sideboard, confetti scattered beneath the table. There's a hush in the Barrett house, like everyone is holding their breath, not quite ready to acknowledge how thin the peace really is. I come down the stairs, the wood cold under my feet, and find Mom, Linda, already in the kitchen. She's moving too quickly, scrubbing pans that are already clean, fussing with a coffee pot that doesn't need her attention. "Morning, honey," she says, too bright. Dad is at the table, reading the news on his phone, but barely seeing it. Melody's not up yet, though her purse and glittery scarf are tossed across a chair. We eat breakfast together, picking at eggs and toast, conversation stalling at the weather and Melody's latest social media post. Every word feels like it's covering something, like we're all working too hard to pretend nothing's changed. It's only after we clear the table that Mom turns to me, eyes sharp, jaw tight. "Evelyn, can I talk to you for a minute?" She leads me to the corner of the living room, out of earshot, but not out of tension. Her voice drops, just above a whisper. "I've heard some things. People are saying there's paperwork. Something about the lake house. And about you." She tries for gentle concern, but underneath, there's fear and maybe something like accusation. Dad stays at the edge, pretending to wipe down the counter, but I know he's listening. I see the way his shoulders are hunched, how he can't quite meet my eye. I feel that old urge to smooth things over, to swallow the discomfort and keep the peace. But something in me resists. Maybe it's the years of being told to wait, to understand someday, or maybe it's just the fatigue of carrying secrets that were never really mine to keep. Before I can answer, Melody appears, holding her phone out, excitement in her eyes. Guess what? I got an offer to shoot a video tour at the lake house. They love the story. Isn't that wild? I nearly laugh at the absurdity. My family still sees the lake house as a backdrop for their stories, a symbol of accomplishment. They don't realize it's become a battleground and that I've already crossed the front line. Mom's patience snaps. Evelyn, you have to tell us if something's wrong. There are rumors. Mr. Duane asked me at the store if we'd moved the deed, and I had no idea what he was talking about. Why would your name be on anything? Dad clears his throat, the mug in his hand trembling just enough to send a ripple through his coffee. Melody looks up, caught between irritation and confusion. All at once, I remember being a child, catching Mom in a small, white lie, her voice confident, her face unreadable. I learned early how adults make their own truths and how children are expected to play along. But I'm not a child anymore. I take a deep breath, letting the silence stretch. For once, I don't try to fill it with apologies or explanations. Instead, I meet my mother's gaze and say, softly but clearly, there's something I need to show you. All of you. It feels like time slows down. Dad lowers his mug, eyes wide. Melody stops scrolling. Even Mom's practiced composure slips. Her fingers fidget with the hem of her sleeve. No one speaks. The moment hangs, heavy and fragile. My phone vibrates in my pocket. A message from Teresa. Everything's ready whenever you are. The final step is mine to take. For a heartbeat, I almost wish someone else would break the tension, crack a joke, or offer an excuse. But I know this is my turn. The masks are thin, and the truth has been waiting for daylight. I look around at my family. Their faces a mix of worry, pride, confusion, and hope. Maybe, just maybe, it's time to let the light in. Some conversations between sisters can never be undone. They can only be understood, if at all years later, when the dust settles and the truth stops stinging so sharply. Today, as snow thickens on the sidewalk outside a cozy downtown cafe, I find myself stepping into one of those moments with Melody. She called last night, her voice a little shaky but trying for casual. Just us, Ev. Coffee? We haven't caught up in ages. I agreed, not knowing what I wanted to say or hear, but somehow knowing it was time. The cafe is a refuge from the world, all warm brick walls, cinnamon rolls behind glass, and low jazz humming from the speakers. Melody is already there when I arrive, staring out the window as if waiting for something besides me. She looks so much like the little sister I used to protect, scarf askew, cheeks flushed, eyes rimmed with worry. Hey, I say, settling across from her. Our hands reach for mugs at the same moment, and we almost laugh at the awkward choreography. For a while, we talk about the weather, about the bakery's new gluten-free options, about nothing at all. The air is heavy with things unsaid. Eventually, Melody sets her mug down, her fingers trembling just a little. Ev, I have to tell you something. And I get it if you hate me for it. I brace myself. Just say it. She looks down, unable to meet my eyes. I knew about the money stuff. The lake house. I knew Mom and Dad were using your name on things, moving stuff around. I didn't really understand what it meant. I thought it was just helping the family. I thought I was helping too. Dad said it would all get sorted out, that you'd be fine. I never thought they were hurting you. I swear. Her voice cracks. I never asked questions. I just wanted to believe we were all in it together. That's what families do, right? She lets out a bitter laugh, wiping a tear. But I see it now. I see how unfair it was. how much you had to carry because the rest of us were too scared or too selfish or just didn't want to know. I want to interrupt, to soothe her, but the truth is I'm angry at her, at Mom and Dad, at myself for never demanding better. I remember all the times I covered for her, told little lies so she wouldn't get in trouble, thinking that was what sisters were supposed to do. But some lies fester instead of heal. Melody reaches across the table, gripping my hand. I'm so sorry, Ev. I'm scared I've lost you for good. I don't know. I thought if I didn't rock the boat, we'd all stay afloat. But I realize now I let you drown, just to keep myself dry. I'm so sorry. The words sit between us, raw and exposed. The snow outside blurs the city, making the world feel small and private. I stare at her, my little sister, desperate and apologetic. I see all the years of shared bedrooms, midnight secrets, jealousies, and loyalties, now tangled in adult pain. I take a shaky breath. Melody, this story isn't over. Not for us. But it's not going to look the same as before. I can't keep pretending nothing happened. But I'm not walking away. Not yet. She cries openly now, relief and grief mixing. Thank you, she whispers. I want to do better. I want to fix things if you'll let me. I squeeze her hand, feeling the old protective instinct flare up, even as my own heart aches. I'm angry, yes, and hurt, but I'm also lighter somehow, like letting the truth out has made space for something else. For a moment, we sit in silence, the cafe bustling around us, two sisters facing each other honestly, maybe for the first time in years. Our story is complicated, unresolved, messy, but it's ours. And as I watch Melody wipe her tears, determined to start over, I realize that forgiveness isn't something you declare. It's something you choose again and again as the story keeps going. The Last Supper isn't always a celebration. Sometimes it's a reckoning, one where every bite is measured, every glance loaded, and every word heavier than the next. Tonight, as the family gathers in the Barrett dining room, the air is thick with a sense of ending. The table is set as always, china from Linda's mother, cloth napkins pressed and folded, a roast sitting in the middle barely touched. I remember all the family dinners growing up, when everything looked perfect, but nothing real was ever said. Those nights felt scripted, each of us assigned a part, careful never to stray off the page. It's strange how those memories feel both comforting and suffocating now. I watch as Melody pushes green beans around her plate. Ronald pours a second glass of wine, but doesn't drink it. Linda busies herself with the salt shaker, though no one's asked for more. We eat in silence, forks scraping plates, the sound echoing louder than conversation. At some point, I realize it's time. My heart pounds, but my voice is steady. Could everyone please listen? They look up, surprised. Melody's fork hovers in the air. Linda freezes mid-reach. Ronald sighs, bracing himself. I place the folder on the table, its edges sharp against the linen. There's something I need you all to see, I say, opening the folder. Inside are the documents, the forged signatures, the paperwork from Teresa, the deed to the lake house with my name, the proof that what happened wasn't an accident or a misunderstanding, but a choice, a string of choices. I lay them out carefully, one by one. This is what's been done in my name. These are the signatures that aren't mine. This, I tap the deed, is the house I now own, because I had to fight for what should have been a simple truth. Melody's face drains of color. She looks from the papers to me, wordless, then down at her lap. She doesn't argue or try to explain, just sits very still, as if afraid of breaking what little peace remains. Linda tries at first to wave it away. There must be some mistake, Ev. Your father handled those things he never meant, her voice wavers, the mask slipping. We were just trying to help. Families do things for each other. You could have come to us. Why did you go to an outsider? Her voice breaks on the last word. She covers her face with her hands and begins to cry, quietly at first, then with the deep, aching sobs of someone who has run out of excuses. Ronald says nothing. He stares at the documents, his jaw set, eyes red-rimmed. For the first time, he meets my gaze across the table. There's no anger there, only a hollow resignation, a man forced to see himself as he truly is, not as he wanted to be seen. The silence grows. The clock on the wall ticks louder. Melody stands abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. She gathers her things and leaves the room without a word. I remain at the table, the evidence of our family's unraveling spread out in front of me. The roast cools, plates half-eaten, wine glasses smudged with fingerprints. No one moves to clear them. For a long time, I just sit. The house is quiet except for Linda's muffled sobs and the low hum of the refrigerator. I wonder if my parents understand, really, what has changed, not just with property and papers, but with trust, with belonging. Maybe, for the first time, I don't care whether they do or not. Outside, I catch the flicker of a neighbor's porch light, blinking against the winter dark. Life goes on beyond our little drama, the world turning, people laughing and planning and loving, utterly unaware of the silent earthquake that has just split this house. I look at the folder, at my own name printed in legal ink, and feel something final settle inside me. The silence isn't comfortable, but it's honest. For the first time, I'm not pretending. For the first time, nobody is. Something basic has shifted. I don't know what comes next, but I know I won't be silent again. After the truth is spoken, all that's left is silence, the echo of old certainties collapsing, the strange stillness that follows a storm. That night in the Barrett house, no one speaks. The world outside has gone calm, snow lying untouched on the lawn, windows glowing dimly against the darkness. Inside, it feels as if the air itself is holding its breath. Linda disappears into the master bedroom, shutting the door with a gentle click that carries all the weight of retreat. There's a hush from that end of the hall, as if my mother is shrinking into herself, trying to block out the world, or the world she helped build. Ronald sits in his den, surrounded by piles of paper, old tax returns, contracts, letters from banks. For the first time, I see his hands shaking as he turns a page. He's always been the strong one, the problem solver, the father who kept everything afloat. But tonight he's adrift, combing through evidence of a life that's slipped out of his control. Now and then I hear the sharp rustle of paper, a muttered curse, the long, exhausted sigh of a man who's run out of answers. Melody is gone for hours. I hear her car pull out of the driveway after dinner, the crunch of tires on icy pavement. She doesn't text, doesn't call, doesn't say goodbye. It's almost midnight when she finally comes back, tiptoeing up the stairs, face pale and drawn, eyes rimmed red. She glances at me in the hallway, uncertain, and I see something in her, an ache, a humility I've never witnessed before. She starts to speak, then changes her mind and simply closes her door behind her. And me? I sit at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug gone cold. The silence is heavy, but it's also oddly light, like something inside me has been released. For so many years, I'd lain awake in this house as a child, staring at the ceiling, wishing I could just say it all out loud, the confusion, the loneliness, the longing to matter. Now, with the truth out in the open, the secrets have lost their power. There's pain, yes, but there's also space. Space for something new. I think about my family, each locked in their own corners, grieving the loss of something that was never as whole as we pretended. I think about the cost of silence and the price of finally breaking it. The house seems to sigh with me, settling into its own kind of peace. My phone buzzes in my lap, A message from Teresa, short and final. Congratulations. It's truly yours now. I turn the small, gleaming key to the lake house over in my palm, feeling its weight. For years, I'd imagined freedom as something grand and sweeping, some dramatic escape, a bold new beginning. But here, it's quiet. It's a matter-of-fact realization. I am free to go. I look around the kitchen at the half-finished puzzle on the counter, the chipped mug by the sink, the memories crowding every corner. They don't hurt like they used to. I can leave them behind. Outside, the sky is impossibly clear, washed clean by the storm. The world feels open, blue, a gentle promise. For the first time, I realize that leaving isn't just running away. It's choosing to step towards something, even if I don't yet know what that is. I hold the key tightly, feeling its edges dig into my palm. I don't have all the answers, but I have this. My story, my choice, my freedom. The silence in the house is deep, but it is honest. And as I look out at the bright sky, I know the change has already begun. Sometimes the hardest part isn't leaving, it's choosing not to look back. That morning, the Barrett house is quiet and heavy, filled with the echo of all the years that came before. The walls feel closer, every creak of the floorboards a reminder of childhood, of arguments, of birthdays, and silent apologies that never made it to words. I move through the house methodically, putting my life into boxes. The first to go are the old books I read under my covers with a flashlight, the dog-eared copies of Louisa, May Alcott, and Nancy Drew that let me imagine other lives, other endings. I find a photo of Melody and me as little girls, arms thrown around each other, covered in mud, grinning with the wild freedom of children who haven't yet learned about secrets. I tuck it into a keepsake box, along with the music trophy no one ever came to see me win. Packing is an act of both grief and relief. With every object I wrap, every drawer I empty, the air grows lighter. My childhood room, stripped bare, no longer feels like mine. It feels like a place I once visited, a life I've already left. Sunlight slants through the blinds, picking out dust motes in the air. I pause at the window and catch a glimpse of my younger self in the reflection, a girl who once pressed her forehead to the glass and dreamed of running away, of seeing what lay beyond the tree line and the quiet limits of family expectation. Back then, I imagined escape would be exhilarating, maybe even heroic. But now I know it's quieter, softer. It's as simple and as profound as letting go. Linda appears in the doorway, uncertain, her eyes red but her voice steady. "Be careful out there," she murmurs. There is so much she could say, so many apologies or explanations, but she lets the silence fill the space between us. I nod, understanding more than I thought I could. Sometimes words aren't enough. Sometimes they aren't even possible. I pass Ronald in the hall. He stands by the door, hands in his pockets, gaze fixed somewhere over my shoulder. "Need any help?" he asks, though we both know he's not offering to carry boxes. I shake my head. He nods and steps aside, letting me pass. He doesn't meet my eyes, but I sense regret in the hunch of his shoulders, in the way he fidgets with his keys. I make one last sweep of the house, looking into each room. The kitchen where I learned to bake, the den where I used to do homework while Dad watched football, the hallway lined with old school photos, Melody's graduation cap hanging at a crooked angle. Everything is still, suspended in memory. At the door, I pause, my hand on the knob. The house is quiet, Linda's footsteps muffled in the bedroom, Ronald shuffling somewhere behind me. For a heartbeat, I let myself feel the weight of what I'm leaving, not just a building, but an entire era of my life. The pain is sharp but not unbearable. It's laced with something softer, relief, hope, a strange sense of peace. I close the door gently, not slamming it, but with a finality that echoes down the front steps. Outside, The air is cold and clear, the driveway dusted with last night's snow. I load the last of my boxes into the car, settling into the driver's seat with a sigh that empties my chest of old anxieties. As I grip the steering wheel, my phone buzzes. A message from Melody appears on the screen, short, uncertain, but full of promise. "Can I see you?" I look back at the house one last time, the windows winking in the morning sun, and I feel both sadness and hope warring inside me. I don't know what's next, but for the first time, I feel ready to find out. With the engine humming softly, I drive away, not running, but choosing. And as the house shrinks in the rearview mirror, I realize that letting go is its own kind of arrival. Owning something is nothing like being given it, especially when every inch had to be claimed, not gifted. I used to think having a place of my own would feel like crossing some invisible finish line, but standing in the quiet of my new lake house, I realize it's more like the hush after a long, difficult journey. The first morning, I wake to sunlight streaming through uncurtained windows. The house is chilly, dust dancing in golden beams, the air heavy with the scent of pine and faint lake water. I pad across the worn wooden floors in thick socks, every step echoing in the nearly empty space. There's something deeply humbling about starting over, seeing your life boiled down to boxes stacked against a wall, the sound of your own breath filling the silence. I spend hours cleaning, scrubbing the kitchen counters, wiping smudges from windows, chasing out a family of dust bunnies from behind the old refrigerator. Each act of care feels like a promise to myself, a vow that this house will become a home. I hang the photo of Melody and me as children by the front door, set out a vase of supermarket tulips, line up my worn books on sagging shelves. My hands remember the motions of belonging, even as my heart lags behind. Midday, Teresa arrives, arms full of flowers and practical advice. She jokes about breaking in my new keys, but I see the pride in her eyes as she surveys the space. We sit on the back porch, mugs of tea warming our hands against the lingering chill. She talks about next steps, taxes, utilities, a few legal odds and ends, but soon her tone softens. "This is your story now, Evelyn," she says, squeezing my shoulder. "You get to decide what comes next." Her words linger after she leaves, echoing in the sunlit rooms as I finish unpacking. I find myself walking from room to room, touching every surface, letting the house settle around me like a favorite coat. I repair a loose door hinge, polish a brass lamp that belonged to someone else's grandmother, open windows to let in the sharp, clean air off the lake. Later that afternoon, there's a knock at the door, a neighbor, arms full of a steaming casserole, grinning shyly. "Welcome to the lake," she says. It's not much, but everyone shares around here. We chat on the porch steps, exchanging small-town gossip, the first tentative steps toward something like community. As dusk settles, I stand at the big living room window, watching the lake begin to thaw, sunlight glittering off the melting ice. The water is restless, shifting the same way I feel inside, not quite at peace, but moving in the right direction. I remember every Christmas morning spent wishing for a place to truly belong, the ache of being on the outside of my own family. Here, there's no audience, no performance, just me and the slow unfolding of possibility. A cautious optimism stirs in me as I light a fire, the room finally warming, the walls reflecting golden light. I run my hands along the battered banister, feeling the weight and freedom that come with true ownership. No one can take this from me. No one can rewrite the story. Every detail, every decision is finally mine. My phone vibrates, a message from Melody, details about where and when to meet. My heart lifts and trembles at the same time. There's fear, yes, but there's hope too. Maybe this new chapter will bring healing, or at least understanding. Maybe not. But for the first time in a long time, I believe that whatever comes, I'll be ready. I lock the door behind me as I step onto the porch, inhaling the sharp, clean air of late winter. The house behind me glows with new promise. I don't know what home is supposed to feel like, but as I look out over the water and sense the world gently shifting, I think, just maybe, I'm about to find out. Some wounds never close completely, but we can choose to leave the door open for something new. Spring comes gently to the lake, brushing the edges of every tree and roof with a patient light. The world smells of thawing earth and distant hope. As I drive toward the little cafe by the water, I feel a flutter of nerves and something like anticipation, a readiness for whatever conversation might come. The cafe is busier than I expected, filled with the comfortable clatter of small-town mornings, mugs knocking on formica, the bell above the door chiming each time someone walks in, the smell of cinnamon and brewed coffee thick in the air. I spot Melody at a corner table by the window, her hands wrapped around a mug, her shoulders tense. She looks up when I approach, offering a tentative smile. For a moment, we're just sisters again, no secrets, no property lines, no old debts to settle. Just the two of us, bracing for honesty. We talk for a while about small things, the weather, the neighbor's new boat, the slow return of color to the world after winter's gray. Then Melody takes a deep breath, and her voice shakes just enough to remind me she's human and afraid. Ev, I'm sorry. I should have spoken up sooner. I got caught up in wanting to help, wanting to feel needed, and I didn't see how it was hurting you. I let them use me as an excuse. I let you get left out. And I never once stood up for you. She bites her lip, waiting for me to lash out or dismiss her. But I don't. I just listen. I tell her, honestly, I don't know if forgiveness is a single moment or a long, slow road. But I know I don't want to carry this anger anymore. I love you, Melody. I always will. But things will have to be different now. I lay it out simply, I need boundaries. I need truth, even when it's uncomfortable. She nods, tears brightening her eyes. We sit with our coffee and our new, unfamiliar honesty. A few neighbors come and go, nodding and greeting, their faces familiar, but their glances less curious now. I see Teresa near the counter, picking up pastries to go. She pauses by our table, beaming, and presses my hand warmly. Proud of you, Evelyn, she whispers. Springs for new beginnings. I expect an invitation to that lake house soon. We all laugh, the tension dissolving just a bit more. We talk about plans for the lake house, a paint color I'm considering, how I might plant some daffodils, maybe even have the family over next Christmas, if we're ready. Melody mentions bringing her famous apple pie, and for the first time in a long time, I can actually imagine wanting them all there, even if the old ghosts hover at the edges. Our conversation drifts to the idea of family, not just the one you're born into, but the one you build, moment by moment, decision by decision. I tell Melody about the neighbor's casserole, about how even strangers can be a kind of home if you let them. We agree to try, not to pretend, not to gloss over, but to keep the door open to each other, a crack at a time. When our mugs are empty and the morning sun glows on the lake, I stand to go. Melody hugs me, tighter and more real than she has in years. There are still questions, still hurts. But I feel, maybe for the first time in my life, that I am steering my own story, not just riding in the backseat of someone else's plan. I walk out into the sunlight, cool and clean on my skin. The path forward isn't clear. There's no script, no guarantees. But the past doesn't own me anymore. The old doors have closed, a new one is open, and I have the key. As I walk toward my car, a gentle breeze stirs, carrying the scent of spring. I look back only once at the cafe, at Melody's silhouette in the window, Teresa's laughter drifting on the air. There is pain, yes, but also possibility. The world feels wide, uncertain, and utterly mine. If you've ever left a place and never looked back, leave a single dot below. I'll know you were here. I am Evelyn, who tells her story, and if you are still here, you probably sympathize with many of the quiet notes of that journey. For me, what haunts me the most is not the physical losses, but the silence that lasts between loved ones. I have learned that family is not only a place to return to, but also the greatest challenge for each person to realize the limits of love, what they need to keep for themselves. Through all the Christmas seasons, the tense dinners, and each letter, I realize one truth. Forgiveness does not mean denying the wound, but daring to open the door of your heart to something new, a better version of yourself, a beginning of a healthier relationship. Sometimes, leaving is not because you no longer love, but because you deserve to live fully as yourself. How about you? Have you ever felt like an outsider in your own family? Have you ever had to set boundaries or choose something for yourself? If this story brings back any memories, any thoughts, please share them in the comments below or simply leave a one. I'll know you've been there as I have. If this journey touches your heart, don't forget to subscribe or follow so you don't miss the next stories. Who knows? Maybe we'll empathize again in another slice of everyday life. Thank you for listening, for taking the time to accompany me through these 16 chapters of turmoil and healing. I hope you're strong enough to open your own door, whether to leave or to start over with love and dignity. I'll see you in the next stories.